Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving headfirst into one of the most mysterious and debated figures in Islamic tradition, the wise guide who taught Prophet Musa, or Moses, a powerful lesson in humility.
So right away, the Quran doesn't even give us a name. Instead, it introduces him by his divine gifts, mercy, and a certain knowledge that comes directly from God. This description alone sets the stage for a journey that goes way beyond our ordinary human understanding.
So, how does this all kick off? Well, the story begins after Prophet Musa declares himself the most knowledgeable person on earth. He's then corrected by God and sent on a quest to find a man who knows even more.
So you see, Musa's quest wasn't really about finding a place on a map. It was a journey toward a totally different kind of wisdom. The real destination was this meeting with the man we now know as Al-Khidr. And right there, that very meeting kicks off centuries of debate among scholars. And it all starts with the most basic question of all. Who was this guy? A prophet or a saint? And really, this whole debate boils down to one single question. Where did Al-Khidr get his incredible knowledge? And more importantly, what gave him the authority to do the shocking things he did? Was it, a kind of personal inspiration the type a saint might receive? Or was it a direct divine command, the kind that only a prophet gets? Okay, so how did the majority of scholars land on prophet? Well, they built a really strong case by looking right at the text. They point to his own words, "I did not of my own command," and say, look, that's a crystal clear reference to divine revelation. But even more importantly, they argue that some of his actions, especially taking a human life, wow, that's so serious it could only be sanctioned by a direct order from God, which, by definition, is what prophecy is all about.
And this quote from the scholar Al-Huwaini, it really shows you why this isn't just, some stuffy academic debate. For theologians, figuring this out, establishing that Al-Khidr was a prophet, is actually a critical safeguard. It completely shuts down the dangerous idea that a saint's personal feelings could ever override the divine law brought by the prophets.
But the mystery doesn't just stop there. Not by a long shot. This brings us to the second big question, one that has captivated people for centuries and has sparked all kinds of wild tales and stories.
So you have these folk stories and even some scholars who've suggested he's immortal, that he's still out there. But the weight of the actual textual evidence, from the Quran and the sayings of Prophet Muhammad, it points to a much clearer, more definitive conclusion. So it's like this. On one side, you've got this really rich, popular tradition full of sightings and encounters, especially in folklore. But on the other side, you have this solid, evidence-based argument coming straight from the core Islamic texts. And it suggests that, well, he was immortal, and like all mortals, he's passed away. So, the case against him being immortal, it really rests on three key points. First, the Quran lays down a universal principle. No human before Prophet Muhammad was given eternal life. Simple as that. Second, think about the Battle of Badr. It's a decisive moment, and the Prophet's prayer basically implies his small group of followers were the last true believers left on earth. Now that statement just doesn't work if an immortal prophet like Al-Khidr was still wandering around. And third, and this is a big one, if he was alive, he would have been obligated to follow the final prophet. But there is absolutely no record, none, of him ever doing that.
Yeah, and this quote really just hammers the point home. If a prophet as great as Moses would have had to follow the final messenger, then that rule applies even more to Al-Khidr. So for a lot of scholars, his complete absence during the life of Prophet Muhammad is pretty much the most telling evidence you can find. It says he was already gone.
Okay, so if the story isn't really about some immortal superhuman, then what's it all for? What's the point? Well, it's a profound test of humility, a test of patience, and a deep, deep lesson in a kind of wisdom that operates way beyond what our eyes can see. Just think about it. Each of these things he did seemed completely unjust, totally illogical, and frankly outrageous to Prophet Musa. Every single one pushed him to break his promise not to ask questions, really testing the absolute limits of his patience.
And this right here, this just brilliantly illustrates the core lesson, doesn't it? That divine wisdom often operates on a level that's way beyond our limited human perception. What looked like a random act of vandalism was actually protecting people. What seemed like a horrific crime was in fact a mercy for two faithful parents. And what looked like a complete waste of time was really an act of justice, preserving a treasure for the next generation.
But here's the thing. This powerful story about hidden knowledge, this whole idea that things aren't always what they seem, It comes with a very, very serious warning.
Yeah, that's a heavy statement, right? This warning from Imam al-Qurtubi is aimed at a very specific danger, people who try to twist this story to put themselves above the sacred law, the ones who claim they have some kind of special, private connection to the truth.
You see, scholars have mapped out this dangerous line of thinking. It starts with a person claiming they have special hidden knowledge. Then, that escalates to them declaring they have a special status, that they aren't bound by the same rules as everyone else. And it always ends with them trying to justify forbidden acts, all because of their supposed inner knowledge.
And this is probably the most crucial takeaway of the entire story. Al-Khidr wasn't just acting on a gut feeling or some mystical vibe. He was, as the scholars concluded, a prophet acting on direct divine revelation, wahi. And with the arrival of the final prophet, that channel is now closed. It's sealed. So his story, it's not a loophole for anyone else to use. It's the exception that actually proves the rule.
So in the end, this whole story isn't some secret password that lets you bypass the rules. It's really a profound lesson in humility, that even the greatest among us has more to learn. It's a lesson in patience when we're faced with things we just can't explain. And maybe most of all, it's about trusting in a divine wisdom that is infinitely bigger than our own understanding. And so, the story of Musa and Al-Khidr leaves us with this one final profound thought. It's a question for all of us, really. How much of God's plan is always unfolding just beyond the limits of what we can see and what we think we understand?